welcome everyone to our Impact Leaders Lab. This is our second one so far, which is very exciting. I think some of you all are coming back for the second time, and some of you all have been on these calls before when they were Coffee and Connects. So good to see some familiar faces, and happy fall or autumn or Halloween, wherever you are in the world. This is a private space that we've created for a select group of sustainability practitioners and professionals to help you accelerate your professional development and overcome some of your challenges in your day jobs, to help you really solve those with your peers. So it's a membership it's a membership kind of side to my business, but it's free, which is always exciting. So if you want to become a member, I've popped the link into the chat, and you'll get a private monthly online event where you're going to be getting tips from actual practitioners and senior executives and CSOs in leading brands like today's from Clorox, or others are Amazon, Google, Cliff Bar, LinkedIn, MSCI, and more. So we are really excited for our future lineup as well as today's speaker. You'll get a chance to get your questions answered directly at the end of the interview. Anything you can ask anything really about how to grow your influence, imposter syndrome, navigating regulations, anything that is an issue within your day job of delivering on your sustainability or ESG responsibilities. We've also got a LinkedIn community page. So it's called Impact Leaders Lab, and we already have 1,200 members. So that's really exciting. If you can go in and join that LinkedIn group, you will get the updates when we publish on Green Biz, the articles that we turn these into, as well as the video onto YouTube. So if you ever miss one, you can always go back and look at the archives. And you'll also get, as part of your membership, our first of its kind CSO playbook that I've curated. I've also put that into the chat, and there's a 3-part video series that goes with that. So feel free to poke around on some additional content when you have time. So for those of you that don't know me, I am Shannon Howd, and my mission is really to get the right people into the right roles so they can advance their careers and create a more sustainable world. So I see myself really as a facilitator, a champion to help you as change makers really be advancing your own impact and your own potential and ability to get out there and do the heavy lifting in this agenda. So I really see myself as your career journey partner, really, no matter where you are on the path. I am an International Coach Federation certified executive and career coach, and I've been in recruitment for almost 30 years. That dates me. And in the sustainability and ESG space for more than 20. So in that time, the last 15 years doing the Walk of Life coaching, I have supported more than 3,000 change leaders to excel into the next stage of their careers. So I get to work with amazing people every day like you. So without further ado, I would love to introduce a friend and colleague over the years, Niki King. She is an industry leader who is the vice president and head of sustainability at Clorox, which is one of the world's largest consumer goods conglomerates. That's a mouthful. Housing iconic brands such as Brita, Burt's Bees, and Clorox, amongst others. Niki previously was head of sustainability at Unilever North America, director of corporate responsibility and social impact at Novo Nordisk, and spent 10 years at Campbell Soup Company in various supply chain and CSR leadership roles. So I'm thrilled to be with you here today to hear her wisdom and tips on our theme. And our theme today is how to embed sustainability and ESG across complex brands, products, and supply chains. Would love just to let you say a few words of introduction, and then we can dive into our questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shannon, for having me here. And it's so great to see familiar faces. I see Deb and Aaron and Marissa. So it's great to see a lot of good friends on here. Shannon, it's funny. I was thinking last night, I'm like, when did you and I meet? It was a very long time ago. I think I was just beginning my sustainability career at Campbell Soup Company. and you were coaching, and Dave Stangus introduced us. I know it was at a conference, but
Everything goes back to Dave. Dave is always the link.
it does. All roads lead to Dave.
Yeah.
But I've watched you over the years be such an inspirational mentor and coach to so many sustainability professionals. And this world has changed from when I started back in 2008. The skills you needed then are so different than the skills that you need now. And we're all trying to embed sustainability. So this is such a timely topic. So thank you for having me.
Great. Well, I am honored. So let's start with actually defining this concept of embedding sustainability into business. We hear this a lot. Tell us how you would define that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, to have sustainability truly embedded in a business means that sustainability is part of the overall business strategy. There are no trade-offs. There's not a separate standalone sustainability strategy. It's all encompassing. And that's what we have at Clorox, and that's how Unilever operated as well. And so for me, this means there are sustainability goals that are part of the overall business strategy. There's accountability at all levels of the organization. There are incentives tied to sustainability performance, and all of your employees understand how they can play a part in helping to achieve the goals. I mean, for me, it was so refreshing. This week, our objectives were due and into the Workday system. So when I went in and we had to align them to a strategic priority, and sustainability was a strategic priority, and I just wanted to cheer because that was a big win, right? But it's also not a one-time event. I think this is an ongoing process that many of us are going through, and it takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes continuous iteration. So that's how I do it.
Great. Well, that's a very good explanation. I think we're going to drill down into some of those areas a little bit more because those are very practical ways to embed it as well, isn't it? And the results of what is good embedding look like. So you've sat in some really iconic brands, Unilever, Novo Nordisk, Campbell, Clorox. So lots of consumer goods, lots of, customer facing brands. Tell us a little bit about across all of those, and feel free to pull from whichever one seems relevant. What is the secret sauce, in your opinion, as a leader in this space? What is your secret sauce that you could share with other practitioners of how to go about embedding sustainability into business? And maybe this is a 1, 2, 3 steps, or this is a 10-step process, but over to you.
Yeah, I've been truly blessed to work for these amazing brands, and I've learned like this is hopefully my last stop. I love the CPG space, and I love when we can tell our story through a brand. So yes, I've been very blessed. One of the things that I was thinking about this question, right? And thinking about these different companies and what has worked and what hasn't worked. I have seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I've tried various iterations of all of these things. But there were three things that really came to mind when I thought about the commonalities and the common thread of what worked well. The first is really it's got to start at the top. You've got to have leadership buy-in. If you don't have that leadership buy-in, it is not going to work. And I've been in a couple of situations where that leadership buy-in was not there. And it's very tough to embed sustainability if that doesn't happen. But I have been blessed to work under some pretty fabulous CEOs who understood that sustainability was part of doing business. When I started my career in 2008, I went into Campbell Soup Company where Doug Conant was the CEO, and he had just brought in Dave Stangus to lead sustainability for the company. I think we called it corporate responsibility back then. But Doug got it, and he understood that to further the business and to set the business up for the future, that was something that was necessary for the company. And one of the main reasons that I came to the Clorox company was because of Linda Rendell. I had watched what she was doing. I saw that she gets it. She was an early adopter of this. She integrated it into the business strategy. we've been very humble and we don't talk about a lot of the work that we do, but that is, to me, having that buy-in at the top is critical for this work. The second thing is governance structures. And in order to be successful, you have to have a sustainability governance structure that includes accountability at all levels of the organization. Really has to start at the board. So for me, I'm presenting to our MGCRC committee quarterly and to the full board annually. And they ask some pretty pointed and tough questions. So you've got to have that accountability built in from the top, and it has to trickle down. So one of the things that I've been doing for the past several months is I built an ESG governance playbook. It's pretty thick, but now there's no confusion about who does what and who the decision makers are, all of the roles and responsibilities, and that has really been critical to success. And then, I think, I'm going to give a plug to these sustainability professionals. The third element is all of these companies had very strong, resilient sustainability leaders who had the right combination of both technical and business skills and the soft skills needed to not only build the strategy, but build the relationships and influence to get the work done. So to me, that's kind of those are the three elements that I think are critical to embedding sustainability.
Mm. And so those are great three kind of core pillars, aren't they? And we were talking earlier offline a little bit about is just such a people agenda. And so you can see right there, it's who's buying in from the top, what are your governance structures, which is really the people again, and then the kinds of skills and people you have on that sustainability team. So what if you've been lucky, as you said, to be in where there is the buy-in from the top, and I know things shift when those leaders leave an organization. What would be your advice to trying to shift that understanding at the top? I'm going offline a little bit because I'm just curious that we don't all get to work at organizations where the senior leadership get it, right? Or they've bought in, or they are really pushing for this. I think you're lucky if you get that. And I always say to clients, go shopping for your CEO. Don't go shopping for the brand or go shopping for the salary or whatever it is. Look at that CEO and the board, and are they in and do they get it? Because that just is a make or break. So, but if they don't, is there any kind of top tip that you would have about helping to shift that mindset a little bit at the top?
Yeah. And I have been in that situation. I've been in that situation where leaders at the top did not get it. And it is challenging. And that's where, as professionals, we have to continue to be resilient. But for me, what I have done in the past to get that buy-in is I've really tried to understand the leader's point of view and where they're coming from. And then I just try to relate to them. So I just try to build that personal relationship. I try to relate to them. And then I do all of the benchmarking, pull all of the data points needed to support, the argument, although it should not be an argument anymore at this point in time, but sometimes it is. But I just lay out the facts on the table and I say, hey, this is a decision that I need you to make. And typically it works. I really haven't had too much pushback when I did a good thorough job at laying the facts on the table.
I like that language, laying the facts on the table, because we talk a lot about building a business case. And to me, again, that's a little bit that we got to convince people. Whereas if you just lay the facts on the table, you don't even need to build a case, because that is the case, right?
That is the case.
Yeah, I like that. And I talk a lot about empathy in the emotional intelligence coaching I do. And that sounds like how you're approaching them is to understand where they're coming from, their lens, their pain points, and really relate to them and get to know them so that when you do come in and put the facts on the table, there's that trust there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very nice. Love that. So I hosted a poll recently on LinkedIn, which I've never done, but it was kind of fun actually, just to see what people come back with. I basically asked, what makes delivering on your ESG strategy so challenging? And I offered 4 reasons: understanding the local contexts, that got only 6%. Collaborating with suppliers got 0%, which I thought was really interesting.
That's shocking, yes.
Yes. Co-creating cross-functionally got 41%. So to me, that's again a bit this embedding piece of how do you work across the organization. And then incentivizing across the business, which was 53%. So I know you mentioned in your first answer about incentives and accountability and things like that. So I'm just curious, what do you think about those results? Do those seem fair? We don't know who answers these polls, of course. But
who answered the polls. But I thought about this and I was like, why are suppliers zero? But then it dawned on me. I was like, if I had to pick one of these, it would be very, very difficult because they are all critically important, right? For us to be successful in our roles, we need to address we need to overcome all of these challenges. So while I was surprised that suppliers was zero, I guess, if I had to rank them all, depending on your situation, I get it, right? But for me, I want to touch on, like understanding local context. And I'll give you an example here. This is something that I've seen to be quite a challenge, especially if you're at a large global company. Often a sustainability strategy is developed in a silo at the global headquarters by a small sustainability team, and they don't often seek input from the local markets. I've been in that situation before. So then when the global team tries to tell the local market to take this strategy that they came up with and implement it, doesn't always resonate. And because the global team didn't get buy-in from the local market is going to be resistant to implement that strategy. I mean, I've seen it. I've been there. So my advice to you, if you're in a global role that is setting the strategy, you need to be inclusive and seek input from your local markets to make sure that you understand the local context, to make sure your local markets understand and have bought in. That way, when you ask the market to implement it, it's going to be a much easier process. So that's the local market piece. The co-creating cross-functionally, most of us, that is something that is absolutely a must do in order for us to embed sustainability, and it's critical. But I think to me that can be resolved by building good relationships. So for me, that's probably not as much of a challenge because that is something that I pride myself on, is the ability to build relationships. And as a sustainability professional, building relationships has to be your superpower. And then I think, incentives, obviously, you can't just tell a business. So for us, we're like asking our business units, we have 13 of them. Each of them will have sustainability goals. They have to build roadmaps. We have to figure out how to incentivize them and help them understand why it's important. If sustainability is tied to your bonus structure, that's an incentive, right? So I do think they're challenges, but we can overcome all of them.
So incentives in plural, are there other ways to incentivize apart from going through the bonus structure or the salary structures? Because I know those are hard sometimes to get, headway with HR and through a full, human resource process. So is there anything else you think of that are like low-hanging incentives?
Recognition actually goes a long way. And I've been at companies that have formal sustainability recognition programs. And I've watched how the employees really work hard to see their name in lights or to be on the stage or to get recognized. So I think just recognizing the hard work that the hundreds or thousands of people across the organization are doing towards sustainability is critically important.
I agree. It's amazing. Actually, there's been studies about that too, about how so many people actually value recognition more than the salary, even, and or the money, if they got a bonus or something. So I think that's a really easy one to set up. You don't need to have a big infrastructure to set that up too, right? You could do that within the sustainability team. So
exactly.
Great. Yep. So if you were going to wave a magic wand and implement 3 things that would make embedding easier, I know you talked a little bit about some of those at the beginning of, getting the governance and the senior level buy-in and the resilient leaders in the necessity team. But is there anything else that kind of are the three things, if you could ask for anything at all and we were going to grant it to you, the three magic wands, what would they be to make your job easier?
An unlimited budget, that would always, so I think, having a way to financially incentivize the business units, right? Helping them in a way where implementing sustainability projects doesn't hit their bottom line. I think that is critical.
But it doesn't hit their bottom line.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
so you're incentivizing by not taking away, in other words, from their budgets. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is number one. The second would be that every single person at the company is fully educated on sustainability, understands what it is, and understands what it means for their jobs. And that is, many of us talk about training our employees, and we'll do training modules, but there has to be very, very consistent education for it to sink in. So I think that would be the second. And then, third, this is really outside of, the company, but the third thing for me would be that all consumers understand the importance of sustainability and they're educated to make sustainable choices. So not necessarily within the business, but that is a huge challenge.
I know we have one of our listeners on the line. It was on one of my calls yesterday, wanting to help with the cause, not the root of the cause, not the solution at the end once we've already got the plastics out there into the world, but how do we reduce early on in that circularity kind of chain. And one of those ways really is to educate the consumer, right? Because if the consumer shifts their buying habits and what they're asking of their brands and products, that's the shift. So do you have a tip for how to educate internally and how to educate consumers? I know that's whole nother session we could probably have, actually. I like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a whole other session. Yeah. I don't think anyone has really cracked the nut on educating the consumer. It's, my peers in the space, we talk about it all the time. We just came from Sustainable Brands Conference, and there was a lot of conversation about that. I think internally, we are working on an employee education plan. And, what I've learned is you can't put a recorded module on the site and expect employees to go listen to it, because we're all busy. We're all doing more with less. That's not going to happen. I think there has to be it has to come to a point where it's mandatory education and it is consistent. It has to be done, quarterly. It's got to be, like 101, 102, 201. There needs to be an increase in knowledge. So, I mean, I recently did a sustainability 101 for our legal department. That was the most engaging conversation from a training perspective. They were so open to listening, and then they asked so many questions, and they all came to me afterwards and said, I learned something today. So I think just getting in front of your employees and having conversations and consistently educating is critical.
I like that, because I think a lot of times we think we can throw out, the random workshop once a year, or, at an all hands meeting, do a little spiel, but that is not it. You've got to have, it's almost like it's a program of education, isn't it? That has to, like a curriculum over time, because it needs to be drip fed as well, doesn't it? It needs, yeah.
It does. And I will tell you, I mean, I was on the job probably, I don't even think I was on the job a month, and I had to present at our town hall. They put ESG on the town hall. So that was my introduction to the company. But our town halls have some sort of ESG component to them, whether it's me speaking or someone else within the organization. So that's another good way, is making sure that it's a topic at every single town hall.
Yeah, getting it embedded into the town hall meetings, because again, that's showing how it is core to the business, isn't it? Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's another good tip. Um, let's see. I'm just thinking about our last question. I think I might want to turn it over to the audience now, just so that we don't run out of time. Unless you wanted to make any comment about the supply chain. I know we're going to maybe talk about how the supply chain and suppliers. I know a lot of companies are focused on scope 1, 2, 3 right now, and they're, the further out from the business, the harder it is to measure and report. So is there anything about embedding in terms of how you would get the rest of your supply chain also to, be on board and actually implementing some of this?
Yeah, so the way we're currently structured is the sustainability strategy sits on my team, very small team. And then we have a very small, we call it ESG sourcing team that sits within procurement. And so they dotted line into me. And so like we build the strategy, they implement, but we're building the strategy with their input. So we're currently in the process of building our scope 3 supplier engagement strategy. And I mean, the the emissions that come from our supply chain are, upwards of 75-80%. So that is obviously a critical piece for us. But we will be putting in place, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, a scope 3 supplier program, which will have those key elements, which, we will have a clear set of supplier requirements and expectations. We'll have a plan for collaborating with our suppliers. We're already educating our suppliers. We partner with a third party to do that. We'll have a process for tracking and reporting progress, and we are going to consider performance-based incentives and penalties.
Mm-hmm.
So that program is just now coming together, but yeah, definitely a critical piece. Of the
Yeah, because you have a little bit less. I mean, you have a little bit actually almost more pressure points on your suppliers, right? In a way, because you are the customer in essence. So, but it needs to be still a co-creation, a collaborative process, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. I'm glad we just touched on that at the end, because I think it's an important piece of, especially working in consumer goods like you have, that it's and the weight of their footprint obviously makes it even more important. So let's jump over to questions. Yes, I love Marissa saying that fave quote, the superpower. I loved that. That's a good one. Monica, do you want to ask your question? I'll let you speak if everybody wants to get ready to unmute and ask your questions. Monica, you're up first.
Sure. Thank you very much for you've pretty much answered the question already. Just yeah, looking for that ESG training, or sustainability training. I think that's really big. I think it's great that it starts from the top and we've got buy-in, but like how do you get the clerk, at the store understanding what sustainability is? How do you get it trickle down truly across the organization? And the thing is, too, I'm coming from a position where I'm not at a consumer company. I'm at an organization. So I'm at an airport authority. So you've got a range of employees. So you've got management, you've got senior management. I've got ESG working groups and steering groups doing their thing. But does the snow clearer even know what ESG stands for? Do I know, if the parking attendant knows what sustainability means in the context of our organization? So, you know, there's things you can do. I get it. There's very practical things, putting things up in the lunchroom and things like that. And yeah, so it would just be interesting if anyone has sort of a referral. I've reached out to um, directors of the company to understand the audience. So if I'm going to be the person educating everybody on sustainability, then what is the level of understanding that people currently have? So I'm in that process. So again, really, I'm just looking for any good referrals for training pieces.
I will say that I'm in the early stages of building that for Clorox. We have partnered with third parties to create some training videos before. And like I said, that the uptake on that is very minimal. I will tell you, one of the things I've been doing is I've been going to our plants and just, at a town hall or at an all hands meeting, just giving an ESG 101, like what what does ESG mean? Like, what are the elements of it? And what does it mean for Clorox? And how can you as an employee be a part of that? So I think just those like at the plant level, I can't tell you, every time I go, I get these emails like, thank you so much. You know, we really appreciate leadership coming and spending time with us. So I think those in-person forums like that are critical. But I mean, I think it's just, you know, you have to use a variety of mechanisms. I don't know if anyone else has good examples, but I'll take those too.
Thank you very much.
How about Megan Shea?
Hi, don't mind the sounds of my baby here. I was just curious. I've heard from different people who are positioned in corporations that oftentimes philanthropy and corporate foundation staff are pretty disconnected from the work of somebody like you, Niki, who's leading ESG within a company. So I'm curious if you see collaboration happening anywhere, and what the possibilities are if those people could be more integrated.
Hey Megan, how are you? So at Clorox, the way we're set up is that philanthropy and corporate foundation work sits under our chief diversity officer. And you know, we've had these conversations like, you know, technically that work is part of our overall ESG strategy. And so she and I, even though we sit on different teams, she and I meet every other week. Our teams come together and collaborate, and we identify ways in which we can, you know, amplify our work together. So that's really how it works for us. Like you take environmental justice, for example, it's half the E and half the S. And so the two of us just have to partner to identify ways to bring that work to life. But you're right, sometimes it does that totally separate.
Yeah, and it depends on where it sits in the organization and how it's structured. Every organization is structuring this differently, aren't they? So
it is. And I can remember when I was at Campbell, that work set separately, then it came to the center, then it went back separate. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. The important thing is that you are working as a team. And that is an important piece. So for my ESG steering committee, Shan, who is our DEI officer, she sits on that steering committee.
Again, it's just getting everyone joined up in the relationships and the communication. It's all similar themes, isn't it? Yeah. Scott had an interesting question. This might be for everyone as well as for Niki. Scott, do you want to ask your education question?
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet everyone. And Niki, good to see you. Fellow Kings, always good to have on the call. Yeah, actually, I'm working with an organization right now, developing a network in kind of the climate arena. And one of the members I recently connected with, she has an education background, more of a traditional education background, teaching, and really wanted to crack into the climate, ESG, sustainability space, but has been having a really hard time finding opportunities. Because she feels as though her skill set's so far removed from what she traditionally finds online for what people are looking for. And she's probably been looking for almost a year. So I was just curious, with all the emphasis you put on education, which is obviously a big part of that within any organization. To your point, it's something that's got to be consistent and frequent. I just didn't know if you had any thoughts that I could pass along to share with her to try and help her cause, and whether it's working for a company or some nonprofit or whatever it might be, however she might find a way to crack into the industry to start building that experience.
A couple of things come to mind. So one, connect with me after, and I will give you a couple of contacts. But there are quite a few higher educational institutions, universities that are developing sustainability centers. Some of them already have them. Some are already developing sustainability centers. So that's the first thing that really comes to mind. There could be an opportunity there for her. I mean, I saw a posting earlier for Princeton University as they're looking for a director of sustainability. So I think that would be an avenue that I would recommend. But if you connect with me, I'll give you a couple of contacts.
Perfect. I'll reach out. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes. We had, well, Christine was asking more of a careers question. Yeah, maybe we look at that, because I think it's interesting right now, this technical versus soft skills piece. So Christine, do you want to kind of frame your question a little bit around the learning and development and skilling up, and reword that a little bit?
Thank
Christine
you so
Ford.
much.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, thank you so much. This is such an amazing opportunity. Well, I'm learning so much, and I think many of us can maybe relate to the desire to pivot into sustainability work from a variety of backgrounds. Mine is in education, more marketing, but more generally, since we know that it takes a strong foundation of technical, but also the soft skills, which maybe those are even more important, it sounds like. What would you recommend for someone trying to break in, investing time and even money? Should I go back to school, for example, first before applying to these roles, or is it more about networking and showing my transferable soft skills? So I'd love your thoughts on that.
I'll give you my personal opinion. My personal opinion is you don't necessarily need to go back to school to get, a sustainability degree. I don't have a sustainability degree. I have a business degree. I understand how the business operates, right? I do think the technical skills today are very important. So understanding, like for me, I know what my needs are. My needs are, I need someone who's very strong on ESG reporting, and I need someone who's very strong on decarbonization and that understands greenhouse gas accounting. That is not my superpower, and I need that, right? So those technical skills, to the extent that you can educate yourself on those, very critical. Same thing with supply chain. Understanding, like, I think what we're going to see in the next few years, we're already seeing it, is this need for scope 3 supply chain professionals. Those technical skills are going to be necessary. But the soft skills are, to me, critically important, because again, this is all about building relationships, being able to influence, and being resilient. This work is not easy. People enter this career field because they want to make an impact. And you do. At the end of the day, when you make that impact, you feel so good. But you typically have to move mountains to get there. And sometimes you tumble down the mountain multiple times, right? It is hard work. It is grueling work. But yes, you feel good about it. So you definitely have to be resilient.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really helpful.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's a great summary to end on, actually, Niki. I think, and framing kind of what's coming up now in terms of the technical skills. I think a lot of people that are trying to get into this space now are struggling with, what technical skills do I need to have, and how do I get those without the actual work experience? And so a lot of us think, oh, we'll just go back to get a master's, and we'll go back and get a certification and kind of tick that box. But then they come up against it in the recruitment space. As a recruiter, I still want to see that they've got the work experience.
Right.
So that's where you can balance the business work experience or the soft skills from your work experience with some of the content knowledge you could get through a certification or a training program, and try to tell that story more interrelatedly. I don't know what you think about that.
I totally agree. I will tell you, I had a role posted a couple of months ago for an ESG data analyst, because that's the other data is critical. I don't like dealing with it, and I need an expert. And I had 400 applications. I read through every one of them because I'm like that. I just like to, I can breeze through and see what I'm looking for. I had maybe 3 people that I might want to interview out of those 400 applications. And it was mostly, people who had 0 work experience, or they were PhDs, and I knew they wouldn't be happy in that role. So now I'm rethinking that role.
Interesting. Yeah. And sometimes you have to go out to the market to see what what comes back to then rethink the role. And that's also, I see that a lot too, that you get a lot of overqualified people or overeducated in some ways, what we would call overeducated, which is not really a thing, but you know, too heavy for the role, that they wouldn't roll up their sleeves and really get into the nitty gritty. And of course, they could probably do the job, but that doesn't mean they're the right fit for the role. And I think those are the nuances when you're applying to roles too, to make sure that you're going in at the right level for what level you're at, rather than trying to undersell.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Niki, thank you so very much for your time today. I will keep you all posted when we get this video recording up on our YouTube channel, as well as when we publish probably in about 6 weeks with GreenBiz. And thank you everyone for your very on-point questions and engagement today. Please feel free again to join us on LinkedIn, on the group, so that you stay in touch. We've got a really good lineup for the next 6 months. We've got Lori from GreenBiz Group, Sarah from Cliff Bar, Holly from Salva and used to be at Google, and Neera, who's at KFC. And then in April, we have Dave Standis from Apollo Global Management. So lots of interesting senior leaders coming in through some very diverse brands, coming to share their wisdom and knowledge with us, like Niki did today. So if anyone has any ideas for speakers as well, or themes, please feel free to email me directly at shannon@walkoflifecoaching.com. And I hope to see everyone next month for Lori Gustavus from GreenBiz. So thank you so much, Niki, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks, everyone,
for your time.
Bye.
Bye.